by music. Stand by now.
3, 2, 1.
And fade up.
It's the Bellagio, the Mirage, and the MGM Grand.
You're a wizard, Harry.
Mike Wazowski.
Open your eyes.
Now tell me, where are the others?
Eat me!
King Kong ain't got on me!
What about second breakfast?
Why not? Why can't I?
How can we be expected to teach children to learn how to read if they can't even fit inside the building?
Welcome to a brand new episode of 20 Years, 4 Beers. Brought to you unofficially by Bad Habit Brewing Company in St. Joseph, Minnesota. Bad Habit, the best thing to happen to St. Cloud area since, well, ever, really. Like, let's be honest. 20 Years, 4 Beers is a podcast dedicated to rewatching popular movies from 2 decades ago, while simultaneously enjoying 4 modern beers. My name is Steve, and this King Kong with me is my big brother,
Tim,
and we are coming to you live on tape from Minneapolis, Minnesota. On this episode, we are taking a major about-face from the family film genre of our last few full-length episodes, and venturing into dark police thriller territory with 2001's Training Day.
Today's a training day, Officer Hoyt. Show you around, give you a taste of the business, you know?
Training Day follows Jake, played by Ethan Hawke, a rookie cop who was assigned to spend his first day as an LA narcotics officer with a rogue detective named Alonzo, played by Denzel Washington, who isn't what he appears to be. The film is directed by Antoine Fuqua, written by David Ayer, who we've talked about in the past.
That's right.
A couple episodes, and shocked that he had written something.
Fast and Furious.
That's right. This is better than that. We'll just start that out right now.
I'm guaranteed.
Yes. The film stars Denzel Washington, Ethan Hawke, Eva Mendes, Scott Glenn. Lots of cameos from rappers and celebs. But really, this is a 2-character movie only in Washington and Hawke. I think that's about it.
That's a good summary.
Yeah, thank you.
Well done.
All right, thanks. Actually, that's going to bring us right into our first segment of the night, which we lovingly call Drinking Buddies.
Come on, not my fucking beer.
Where we have Tim walk us through our 4 beers or drinking buddies that accompany us through the film. This week, we actually did not even attempt at theme beers. So I said before, we are unofficially brought to you by Bad Habit Brewery, and that is because we decided to forego that attempt, and we just chose 4 beers from the same place.
Yeah.
We thought it would be a fun alternative.
Change it up.
That's right. So Tim, who are our drinking buddies?
We have the Wiggity Weizen. Or is it Weizen? Hefeweizen. They're Hefeweizen from Bad Habit. Their Sweetly Sinful Triple Berry Milkshake IPA, which includes blueberry, raspberry, and strawberry puree. Very excited for that. Mm-hmm. Then a bit of a throwback here. Their Red Beerin Red IPA. I cannot remember the last time I've had a red IPA, so I'm interested in that.
Yeah.
And their Really Ripped Imperial Blood Orange Milkshake IPA. So 4 crowlers to share, and it's kind of nice to try a different option to see what that looks like from one brewery.
Didn't you have a black IPA at one point from like Surly or something, because it had been forever since you had a black IPA?
Yeah, I did. No, from Stone.
That's what it was.
Yes.
Yep. And you liked it.
It was a nice throwback. I was pleasantly surprised, yes.
Well, thank you. So it actually brings us right into our second segment, which is called The Social Network.
If you guys were the inventors of Facebook, you'd have invented Facebook.
Our look back at the reviews or reactions from the time, both good and bad potentially. I for sure have one. Tim, do you have? I assume you have a couple because you always have Roger Ebert.
I do have Roger.
I'll go first in case we copy,
that
way you can just skip to the Ebert guy. I have. Thank you.
Yep.
I have a review from Empire Magazine.
Nice.
Do you?
No.
All right, here we go. So I have Chris Hewitt of Empire Magazine.
Hewitt.
Gave it 4 out of 5. And said this movie is marred slightly by an unsatisfactory climax. Tee.
That's what she said.
Yeah, that's right. This is a cracking cop drama anchored by great performances and intelligent direction from Fuqua. It's refreshing to see a thriller worthy of the label.
Oh, that's a good one. The IMDb rating is 7.7 out of 10. And overall, it seemed like there was kind of a pretty positive but somewhat polarizing overall that I saw.
Sure.
Yeah, Big Man Roger. We're going to start with him this week. Or I will. 3 out of 4 stars, saying the film is an equal opportunity police brutality picture depicting a modern Los Angeles in which the black cop is slimier and more corrupt than anybody ever thought the white cops were. Yet so extreme is Washington's mad dog behavior, it shades over into humor. Carrie Rickey of Philadelphia Inquirer, she says, less a police drama than a cinematic force feed. The film is difficult to swallow and harder still to stomach. And this one I liked from Dave Edelstein of Slate, saying the first 2/3 are a horrifying study in vigilante outlandishness. A surreal concentration of all those films and shows about the by-the-book idealists being taught the dirty but essential ways of the street by their cynical elders. Yet the final third trivializes the whole exercise, and Washington has too much stature to squander it on just another movie about a chuckling psychopath with a god complex.
If you know anything about David Edelstein, everything about that sentence screams his "my shit don't stink" about a reviewer.
I thought you'd like that.
Oh my gosh.
I saw that. I'm like, oh, Steve's going to love that.
Oh,
yes.
Edelstein.
That year was up for 2 Academy Awards.
Yep.
For Best Supporting Actor for Ethan Hawke and Denzel in his Best Actor award-winning performance in this, beating out Russell Crowe for A Beautiful Mind, Sean Penn for I Am Sam, Will Smith, Ali, and Tom Wilkinson for In the Bedroom.
You know, I think looking back on it too, I always used to think like, how did he win for this? And then I look at who he was up against,
right?
And I'm kind of like, I mean, if you've seen Tropic Thunder, we know why they didn't give it to Sean
Penn.
Penn. I can't say it, but we understand that. But I do understand, like, looking at the rest, like Will Smith is good in Ali.
Yep.
Russell Crowe had won the year prior, and he's good in Beautiful Mind, but it's not like so much better. And
no.
So Denzel having lost for like Malcolm X and along the way that he probably should have won for, so it made sense.
Yes.
But yeah, I always think like, oh, maybe he shouldn't have won, and then I look at who he was up against, and we're like, okay, that's about right.
Yes.
Do you have any initial thoughts or memories, or?
I was thinking about that today as preparing for this. I am confident I have seen this movie, and that is the extent of my memories of this. I guess I should say I remember the broad strokes, like bad cop, new guy getting taught the streets, and some contrivances, I believe I remember, and that is truly about it. So I'm excited to see it because I guarantee I have not seen it since the theater or whenever, like on video.
Sure.
Easily 20 years.
Yeah, I know I definitely wouldn't have seen it in theaters, but I know I saw it because I would have seen it before the Oscars of that year.
True.
Because that's just what I do, I guess.
It's your jam.
It's my jam. But I agree. I don't think it's been, if I've seen it, it's been 18, 19 years maybe.
Sure.
I definitely never owned it, so I never watched back on it. I do remember some things. I remember it being a really sort of gritty movie, and the way they filmed it and where they filmed it is really key, which we'll cover later.
Okay.
But no, I'm with you. I'm very interested in, this will be the first time I think it's been since seeing since seeing it the original time, or about 18, 20 years for me, and all of our episodes. Because everything else I would have seen since then. I was looking back, and I'm like, this will be the first time. So it'll be really interesting to see how...
I'm very intrigued.
Yeah, and not even how much it holds up, because I know my IMDb rating on it, like you can do that, was 6 out of 10. So I'd be curious on, like, is it better than 6 out of 10 than I had? Yeah, I don't know. So I'm really interested to see how this holds up. So on that note, we are going to watch Training Day together. We're going to enjoy our beers. If you really want to, you can watch along with us. Otherwise, we'll be back in, give or take, 30 seconds to a minute and a half, depending on whatever clip I choose to break this apart. So, released in 2001, directed by Antoine Fuqua, we have Training Day.
Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. The good guys, they die first, right? Those school kids and moms, family men, they don't want to catch the stray bullets in the noodle. To protect the sheep, you got to catch the wolf. And it takes a wolf to catch a wolf, you understand?
What?
I said you protect the sheep by killing the motherfucking wolves. No, you didn't hear me. You listening, but you didn't hear me.
All right, whatever.
Yeah, whatever the fuck ever.
Well, welcome back, dear listeners, to 20 Years, 4 Beers, where we have just finished Training Day, starring Denzel Washington and Ethan Hawke. We actually just jump right in to our reaction segment, which we call High Fidelity.
Top 5 side ones. Track ones.
Where we discuss our top 5 takeaways from the film. Do you have any first thoughts you want to jump in on, or how are you doing here?
I was unprepared for how much I love this movie.
Interesting. Because, yeah, you had said it really probably was.
I was
for both of us. I remember it more than you did, for sure. But, like, for both of us, it's been a while.
I've seen it once, I'm pretty sure,
mm-hmm.
20 years ago. And it's through this lens of, like, it exists in a pop culture world of, like, with Denzel and, like, being over the top or whatever. Like, yeah, I was floored, man. I was shocked at how much I thoroughly enjoyed. Like, it was one of the things, like, we have this top 5 segment. It's the rare movie we watched so far where I was kind of like taking a few notes. So this might be weird, like, extemporaneous as we go through it, but I was riveted to the movie, and I was shocked by that. I was expecting it to be like a, okay, we'll get, like, I don't know. I didn't know what to expect, but it was way better.
Before we get into, like, top 5 or anything like that.
Sure.
I do tend to agree of saying, boy, I have, I think going into this, when I was looking at our list for the year and kind of what we were looking at, I really was not sure Training Day should even be on the list or even talked about in a full episode or a happy hour episode. Like,
sure.
I just wasn't sure. No, that's been... I think you're going to have more of a visceral reaction than I will, as I'm seeing you now.
I was shocked
at
how much I was riveted.
So, I agree in the sense of I'm very glad we picked it for that reason.
Yes.
If no other reason, then I think this might be the only one that I have not seen, like the rest of the year.
Yeah.
It might be the only one I have not seen since its inception.
Yeah.
So if for no other reason that. So do you have a number one, or do you want me to go first so you can sort of process
You can go first. I gotta
thoughts?
get my stuff
The
together.
number one thing I thought was authentic or authenticity.
Yes.
And I knew it ahead of time and I wanted to watch it again. I am not a cop. I don't live in South Central LA. I live in Minneapolis or outside of.
Yes.
I cannot speak to the authenticity from a one-on-one my real life experience standpoint. I'm a white guy from the suburbs.
Yeah.
I am not from South Central LA. However, it is interesting that they actually filmed it in the Imperial Courts neighborhood of South Central LA, which when he kind of talks about that's where it ends and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Where you're supposed to take an army into this area. They actually filmed it on location, and it's very rare for films like this to film on location there for good reasons of saying it is a very, I guess, for lack of a better term, dangerous area to go into. And then to film there, it is a dangerous area. So they weren't originally going to film there, but Fuqua and I guess Washington apparently really fought to film on location in South Central LA. And that, if nothing else, the other scenes, like all on the streets of LA or whatever, that's pretty typical. You can see that in Collateral. You can see it on other movies. But being able to film in that area and having real people who live in that area, a lot of those people are not actors. They're real people who live in that area. Just struck me as authentic.
Yeah.
And Fuqua and I guess Washington as well, they really went out of their way to have that authenticity, and it shows. And apparently the filming went great and everything was wonderful and the people were very welcoming and it was great. It helps to have Denzel
True.
walking into your neighborhood.
Yes.
But I think the authenticity of it really stood out to me.
Yeah, I agree. Like it was. I don't know, man. I was.
Should I go again?
No,
Do you need some time?
no.
Should we pause?
I don't have anything to bounce off of that, but it's like
Whatever.
More so,
yeah.
like I guess
Listen.
from the Washington standpoint, like we kind of somewhat joked before the earliest segment around like this always has been like seen through the lens of like a Gimme Award to Washington for his portrayal in this, and it felt like he had gotten a Best Supporting Actor for Glory, and okay, like sure, we'll give it to you because you haven't got the Best Actor, and it was the first time for a black actor since Sidney Poitier or something, and so it's like okay, like that was always like this unfortunate lens. It was my memory was through this, and that's total bullshit. Like he is so incredible in this movie for me. Like because I was reading some like apparently Russell Crowe won all the pre-Oscar awards for his role in A Beautiful Mind. Yeah, so this was kind of seen as like a major upset, but that's crap. Like he is gravitating, and he is not just playing against type as far as villain, but like there are these moments where you can see him. He's a horrible human being. Like he's terrible. He's a villain, but it's these moments that sneak up on me as I'm watching it, like talking with Ethan Hawke's character and being at home or with his mistress and the like son. It's these tiny, like the glimpse at the end when like he's being, just like at the end, like in the courtyard, they talk about like seeing his son get pulled away. Like it's these tiny things that remove it from a just like again mustache. I was expecting a mustache twirling like villain, sure, where it's like I like that, but no, like it. I don't know, man. He was fantastic, fantastic.
I will play off of that in that one of my points was I think casting Denzel is a great choice because he inhabits Alonzo, and I think when you bring in a guy like Denzel, because Alonzo has layers, and you don't. I think the hard part of rewatching a film is when you know that he's a bad guy. Yep. You don't really. Thinking back to when you first watched it. Yep. You didn't really know he was the quote unquote bad guy. Yeah. Of the movie, you knew based on previews and stuff that it was something different. Yep. And it isn't until later that you kind of realize it. So casting Denzel, who up until then have been in mostly good guy roles, especially in the late 90s with like, I mean, he did Philadelphia in the early 90s, but then he had like Pelican Brief and Courage Under Fire and some of these other, he was always this like really good guy.
Above reproach.
Right. And so I think casting him is so good because you play against cast, but then you also also cast a guy who can say a ton with his eyes and without saying anything. Yes. And you realize along the way that maybe his character, while he's a bad guy, maybe he also there's an untold story that you don't know that led him to this. Yes. And so, and we can talk about that later. So I think casting Denzel is a great choice because he inhabits him, but he's counter his good guy persona, and yet he's so good that you do want to like him a little bit. Yeah. He is very deserving of his win. Yes. For not only this film, but for the previous 10 years worth of movies that had come out. True. I will say, I remember this being negative because I thought he should have won for Hurricane. Yeah. Right? Yeah, which totally. He lost to Spacey for American Beauty. Yes. Yes. I thought he should have won for, and that's where I thought it was a makeup award. True. In that, I think he should have won for Hurricane. Yes. Because he's way better in that than he is in this, and he is really good in it. But, so now 20 years later, without that sort of immediacy bias, it is kind of nice to see. Yeah. So, yeah.
I totally agree. Like, the casting was perfect for him, like against type of sorts. But second point for me was, I was struck watching this from like a realistic standpoint, or so, down the road, ideally we'll watch The Dark Knight, But
Yeah, if we are here,
8 years
if
from
we are
now-
here like 6 years from now, 7 years from now, absolutely.
And what always struck me about that movie was, while The Joker by Heath Ledger is obviously incredible, Aaron Eckhart
Yeah.
gets a bit of a underserving like appreciation for how fantastic he is
Mhm.
as Harvey Dent. I was thinking about this, watching this, being like, Denzel gets the obviously prestige and the recognition for this. My second thing was Ethan Hawke is ridiculously good in this. Like,
Yep.
he's a supremely underrated actor.
Yep.
He is solid in pretty much everything that I've seen him in. And it's like a reliable, like, yeah, you're the anchor to this and whatever. But he is so good in this as this wide-eyed newbie of sorts.
Right.
And just seeing him, like, being manipulated and just changed by this experience in just a one-day period, I was super impressed. Ethan Hawke, like, I didn't look up actually before who his other nominees were that year that he lost to, or whoever won that.
Well, Jim
award.
Broadbent won for Iris.
There it was.
Who is
yes.
very good. He
Yes.
was also up against like McKellen for Fellowship of the Ring.
That's true.
And there were a couple others, and I'm suddenly blanking on.
I think
but
Ben
yes.
Kingsley for
Oh
something.
yeah, Sexy Beast.
Yes.
Yep.
So it's maybe a stacked deck, but God, he was good. Fantastic. So impressed.
Yeah,
Yes.
I will say I feel like Hawk is an underappreciated actor in a sense of I liken it to, we all have that friend who is the one you go to almost out of like necessity, or you're like, oh, that person will always be there for me.
Sure.
Right. And Ethan Hawke is an actor's version of that. If you just go, if he's in the movie, you'll go, oh yeah, he's good.
Yeah, he's great.
Not only is he going to be good, he might be great.
Yeah.
And he is an underappreciated in that sense especially from, I guess, if you want to talk an Oscar standpoint, but yeah, he's always, man, you can't tell me a movie that he's bad in.
Exactly.
So no, for sure. He is outstanding in this movie. And so Jim Broadbent is great in Iris. He's really good in Iris. It's not one we'll be watching this year because, yeah, no. Nothing like a podcast about Iris. It really gets you going.
Totally.
A little Judi Dench action. But yeah, I think Hawk is he's so good in this. My second point, but you mentioned Denzel earlier, but really my second point was, or third now, this movie is all about shades of gray.
Yeah.
And I guess coming off of Hawk is that he is so green at first, and he does a great job of being that sort of like, he's not a rookie, he's been in the academy for a year and a half or whatever, but he is a rookie as far as on the streets.
Yeah.
But I was struck by Ethan Hawke, there's shades of gray, and it's very clear. Like, he starts to, obviously he does drugs,
Yep.
and he has beer, and he does these things, and, you see him sort of make these decisions, understanding that I have integrity,
Yep.
but I'm now going to start making decisions that maybe that doesn't go to the murder scene, of course, but
Sure.
he also he has a wife and kid at home, so he doesn't want to die, so he has to make that decision. So there's easy shades of gray there. But I was struck, I wrote that down at first, and I was thinking more about Hawk, but then when Denzel or Alonzo are with the three wise men,
Yes.
it was abundantly clear that at some point Alonzo had made those decisions to make his own life better because he made money and stuff like that, but he was not the kingpin of this.
No.
He was also in the gray area. He
Yes.
believed he was doing right, but he was also being used by these other guys who were taking advantage of him.
Yep.
So there's this weird shades of gray that you believe that Alonzo at one time also believed in what Ethan Hawke does, but now he's the sort of end game of what could have happened with Hawke or any of these other guys of his crew. So I just thought this movie does a great job of finding those. It's not black or white. It's all about the middle.
What ties to that, but the great scene that he has with, is it Scott Glenn, the
Yeah.
actor? about 20 minutes in where he talks with Alonzo being like Hoyt at the beginning, thinking, oh, I can see him in you. And, you know, even Alonzo complimenting Hoyt on stopping the girl that was being raped.
Yep.
And then, yes, you add in that scene, which again, I'd totally forgotten about, with the three wise men, where you can start to see this hierarchy of sorts, where it's seen through a somewhat lens of like, you know, Alonzo was like a loose cannon and doing his own thing, but you start to see as he comes in there and he's very respectful to these men and deferential to a point.
Yeah.
But you start to see like, oh, he is a cog in this machine,
Right.
that is not necessarily seen from the beginning.
Right.
You think
he even
like
says to Hawk about the warrant afterwards.
yes.
And he's like, you don't want to know. And then Hawk's like, yeah, I don't want to know. And he says, like, yeah, even then, warrants come at a cost. He's like, yeah,
Yes.
I don't want to know.
Exactly. And so I loved that idea that like you could take potentially similar starts as a rookie,
Mm-hmm.
and depending upon the variables and the impacts, the outcome can be very different. Which I think the show really well, as far as like, again, not a villain, but a product of all these things that are hinted at but not blaringly said.
No, yeah, like
Alonzo,
was he Scott Glenn's
exactly
protege?
Yes, exactly.
Like, you don't know because
yeah,
you just don't know.
but they do a great job of like packing these things to the point where it's like, depending on these certain things and your core values and stuff like that, it could be incredibly different for the
Mm-hmm.
outcome. So yeah, I love that scene of Ethan or Hoyt sitting on the sidelines watching Alonzo talk to them and seeing like some shady stuff's going down
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't quite realize. And then from that point on, man, the screws turn for that. Yeah,
Mhm.
so I love you talk about, yeah, exactly. That was a clear indication of like, it can be very different depending on the variables. Yeah, you're up. Number 4.
It's me?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm number 4?
Yeah.
All right. So I read a review earlier that talked about an unsatisfactory ending. And I completely agree, actually.
Oh, tell me more. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Because as it was going, the movie does a really great job of layering as you go. Because initially, it's just the two of them out on the town, and they're, you know, he's accosting Snoop Dogg to get his information and all this other stuff. You're like, where is this going? You don't really know. And then the scene where they kill, well, Denzel kills Scott Glenn, spoiler alert.
Yep.
You start like, okay, this just took a turn.
Yeah.
Like that was really where you're just like, okay, that's where this took a
Shit got
turn.
real.
And then it just keeps ramping up, and it does a really good job of ramping up from there and there. And I felt like what he was talking about was, I was like, it was really great to have the community stand up to him.
Yes.
But then there's no scene that hasn't let him go. There's no indication, and then all of a sudden he's driving down the street and the Russians show up and they kill him.
Yes.
And that to me is unsatisfactory, of saying this community could have taken the reins back.
Yep.
And you know, they would have had Jake Hoyt be like a cop, not like who's trying to take advantage of them, who might actually protect them.
Yes.
Who might actually care about them. And then all of a sudden it was just like, oh, the big bad Russians killed them. Yeah. And I understand of saying like, you don't want the community to kill him because then you have another cop killer in that area.
Yes.
But there's no scene of talking about that.
Yes.
The only people who kill him are just some random Russians, and then he's dead. I do think unsatisfactory is a good saying of like, you're ramping up to this big thing, and in the end he just dies because of the Russians.
Yep.
I can see that of saying the tension just kept ramping up and ramping up and ramping up, and then there's no connecting scene between when Jake gets saved by the community there, and great scene. That whole scene is great.
Oh, it's fantastic.
And then it feels like this sort of like entrance at the end that says, here's how he dies.
Yep.
When in reality, he could have been killed in that neighborhood, and it would have been on point. It would have been these people taking their freedom back from this guy. So I don't know. I can see how the reviews, and that's what I remember too, thinking back of saying like it wasn't satisfactory. It wasn't something I felt like was, because the very ending was not that great.
You know, it's funny you talk about that. Like, I didn't realize like the whole like unsatisfactory thing, but like as we sit here and think about, you know, if the crux of, you know, Alonzo's character is coming into this community and he has his mistress, his son, and there's scenes where the characters in that area show like they're done with his shit. Like,
right.
They're so fed up with him. And meanwhile, this weird like third party villain of sorts is this Russian thing. It was like, oh, he went to Vegas and killed somebody and now they're off for him. Like, you don't have that connection as an audience. It's just this ethereal villain or, you know, worry kind of thing. It does undermine that impact, I agree, as far as if the comeuppance will occur, impact is greater if it's something you have a connection with.
Right.
Like,
we have no connection with the Russians.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, okay, cool.
Right.
Like, hey,
it felt like an entrance of saying, now we're going to get him killed and excuse away the people who, by all accounts, if you have to take an army in to protect yourself as cops, they're not nice people.
Technically a platoon.
Right. Yeah. Like, you're just like, I don't think that's the case. So it's known that this is not a place that's friendly to cops. So it's not a far stretch to think that they would take him out.
And they let Jake go.
Right.
Seeing as how he was trying to stop Alonzo. Like,
right. They
can leave.
Can trust him in a sense.
It's almost like in The Lion King when Scar gets killed by the hyenas. Because it's like, oh, like I was on your side, but now I'm not. There was that's an impact as opposed to, oh, this like wildebeest comes in and kills it.
Right.
Whatever.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
What? What is this like third party thing?
Or a white hunter somehow shows up. Right.
Kills.
Yeah.
White hunter.
Just some white guy, some white dentist from Brooklyn
Yes.
Park just shows up to kill him.
Kills freaking Scar. Oh god, that's great. No, I agree. Like it was fine, but I agree. It like lacked the punch.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't ruin it. It doesn't make it, you know. But I can see where that came from because even that reviews, it was a 4 out of 5.
Yes.
So I mean, it was good. I did see that.
Yes. So from a kind of fourth point from you is to be somewhat of a minor quibble. The coincidence of Hoyt almost being set up by Alonzo with a family of the girl that he helped earlier in the film be stopped from being raped is somewhat absurd. Like, of all the like influence he has, Alonzo, and like all these families, and Hoyt just happens to be set up. I can't deny it's still effective. That scene is intense with like seeing Hoyt, you are being set up, man. Like the shit is going down.
Yeah, the poker table.
Poker table
really
is so incredible.
Yep.
But it feels like a like kind of a Deus Ex Machina, kind of like, oh, we're gonna have you ready to go, and oh, here's a wallet from an hour ago, and what's this? Like, oh, you were good. Hey, I just had a gun to your face. We're good now, right? Yeah, thanks, buddy. Like, it's a minor quibble. It's super intense, but it just ends in a way that feels like, okay, well, thanks, buddy. See you later.
So I was looking at that because I remember that scene, and I was like, the one thing I noticed is that she just talks about her cousins and that kind of stuff, but doesn't name any names.
Oh, yeah.
Because had she named names, it would have been like, really? She just talks about this guy, and now you're going to try and, like, it would not have fit.
Totally.
So I do think it's very, but that's very film, right? I mean, you can't, that's what films do.
I agree.
They put you in ridiculous situations.
Yes. Yeah, it can't be like, again, we just lament the whole fact of a third party comes in to kill Alonzo, and now we're like, this seems too connected.
That scene is really good, though.
Oh,
that whole scene is really good.
Intense.
Yep.
So yeah, that's my fourth one.
I have a deep thought for number 5. Do you want me to go last? Do you want to go again?
I want you to go last because my thing is not deep cut.
Okay, go ahead.
Man, kudos to Antoine Fuqua for hiring or casting or whoever did musical stars. They're surprisingly effective in this. Like Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre.
Snoop Dogg is an underrated actor.
He was great in
Not
this.
only in this, but in other things he's been in. He's underrated.
He is, but he somewhat played like
I guess
a
when you're high
variation.
99% of the time, you can just slip on into whatever role you want.
But think about Snoop Dogg in like Starsky and Hutch. Like he plays like Huggy Bear.
Huggy Bear, yeah.
He's a variation of Snoop Dogg, and like you add Macy Gray, like, but they're really good. But Snoop Dogg was
even Dr. Dre was halfway decent in this.
They're really good in
Yep.
this. I was really surprised thinking like late 90s, early 2000s, like music stars, like or like hip hop rap stars, like kudos for casting. I was very impressed as from an acting standpoint. So that's my non-deep thought.
Yeah, Snoop Dogg is, again, he is surprisingly
he was
really good. Not only in this, but in anything he does.
Yes.
I could wax poetic about Snoop Dogg more than I should for, again, a white guy from the suburbs.
D-O-W-G.
Right, exactly.
All right, what you got?
Okay, so my deep thought is, are you a Jake or are you an Alonzo in terms of how you view the world? Because there is fundamental differences between the two. And as I've gotten older, I have noticed, and I'll preface this with, whenever there's a movie that has some eco-terrorist who's trying to kill half the world, like Endgame or whatever, like I can kind of relate now as I get older to the eco-terrorist of being like, yeah, maybe half the world should die, you know. And like the more I get, I know when I first saw this, I was a Jake. I was saying like I know this is like, I guess this is probably the middle-aged white guy version of like like the Sex and the City, right? Like
we're having a deep existential crisis right there.
Yeah. Are you a Miranda?
Yeah, it's a
binary
binary
like,
choice.
there is this weird thing of saying, the more I watch this movie, the more I'm like, I'm on Jake's side fundamentally. But I'll be damned if I cannot see Alonzo's side of saying there is very little, I should say not no, but very little mechanism for pure good to defeat evil without sacrificing some integrity along the way. Like, it's really hard. And as I've gotten older, quote unquote, I can see more of Alonzo in myself of saying, I would rather have guys like that on the streets trying to protect us, even though they take their own and they get there. I don't want people using people of the streets, but I'm saying I can understand looking at a pack of $250,000 and being like, yeah, this is life-changing money. I mean, not in LA, in California, that's like a month's rent. But like, I was just saying, yeah, are you a Jake or are you an Alonzo?
I was not prepared for that question.
Deep thought.
Well, I think what changes some of that variables is like, or the dynamics is like, you know, Alonzo is the catalyst for this is largely because of his muck up with the Russians.
Yeah,
where it's like it's probably exacerbated.
Right.
Like, holy cow,
but
you were.
Let's talk about like Alonzo before this scenario, because he had these beliefs before this. He mucked it up.
Yeah,
but this was still, obviously, I would not think I would pull the trigger on killing somebody or anything like that. But just the fundamental understanding that says, if you want to take down a crack dealer, you may have to do crack to do it.
Yeah. To experience
which
it,
is
like,
not
if you deny it.
Something you would want to do as an integrity thing. But if you want to take that guy down, you're going to have to do it, or else you're going to be dead because they're going to know you're a cop.
Well, I don't know if I can answer necessarily the question of like...
Yeah, it's fine.
But what I will say is I love watching this again in that both views of that are portrayed through a very empathetic lens.
Yeah, it's equal. It's not good versus evil necessarily.
Again, I thought from my memory, like the limited I have the experience, but this would be like a villain and good guy. Yeah. And I can appreciate where Hoyt is coming in, certainly wide-eyed, but like under these circumstances being dulled by this experience, but still maintaining his values. And then I can see where Alonzo's coming from, where if you got to live in this, like, again, we talked about, like, you know, the sheep and the wolf, like, you got to know what the wolf is like. And so, yeah, that's why ultimately I really was impressed by this, showing it through the lens of, it wasn't necessarily a villain, it was a protagonist antagonist perspective that I really liked and was impressed with. So that's my cop out to your question.
That's fine. No, I don't mind the cop out. As long as it doesn't feature any of your fancy big words, we're fine.
We're
I don't
getting
even know
there.
what the last one you did. It was like the plate on complete or whatever. I don't even know.
Deus Ex Machina?
There you go. Yeah. What the hell?
That means like a force outside of your control comes in and saves you at the last minute where you have no control over. Like all these movies where it comes like it's the God in the machine, machine basically is the line for that. Yeah.
You know who you are? You're like the 1950s priest who only wants to preach in Latin because, you know, us commoners who don't understand you. Yeah, that's what you are.
The
You
people
your
that say
big
like
words.
the finale of the movie is actually it's the denouement.
Yeah, whatever. Enjoy yourself. So I do think we can certainly chime in on other things as we go, but we're going to move on.
All right.
So we have our next segment, which is Drinking Buddies, the sequel.
Let's get weird.
Where we recap our beers and provide you with our expert ratings based on all of our experience of drinking beer.
All right.
Like we're pros. We're pros.
Our pro palate. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Do you have some fancy word for that? So Tim's going to sort of take us back through our beers, and we're going to kind of talk about them and talk about our ratings. So, Tim, what do you got?
Yes. So, Bad Habit. Thank you. #
Yes. Yeah, Bad Habit. Thank you for not sponsoring us.
Yes. First off, we had the Wiggity Weizen Hefeweizen.
Is it Weizen or Weizen, right?
I always say Hefeweizen.
I get it with the Wiggity, so you're supposed to say the W, but isn't it?
Well, Hefeweizen is German. Yeah, it's German for yeast, apparently. And
thanks,
so,
Professor.
Weizen, you know,
right?
like
That's what I'm saying. So Wiggity Weizen makes no sense from an alliteration standpoint. I'm disappointed. Yeah, is it Viggity?
Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, Viggity. All right. So anyway, we got the Wiggity
Weizen. You know, I haven't had a Hefeweizen in quite some time, like a standard one.
Yeah, standard one. Yes.
Yeah, it was a 4 for me. It was a nice, solid start to this. So, yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's hot as hell here in Minneapolis today, so I do think a lighter beer definitely helped to do that. I agree. I had a 4 out of 5. Again, my standard of Hefeweizen is always it's the banana scale.
Yeah. Right.
Are you like full banana, or are you just sort of like partial? And this did not have much of the banana eat. Right. Are you just a tip? Like,
just a tip banana?
Yeah, exactly. It is, and it didn't have it. It wasn't there. Nope. And that's where I was like, okay, this is good. I have 4 out of 5 as well. Good. So that's my standard on that one.
And then we had this Sweetly Sinful Triple Berry Milkshake IPA with blueberry, raspberry, and strawberry puree. I had a 3.75 for me. I don't know. It felt like it couldn't decide if it wanted to be like a mild sour or a milkshake IPA. It was a good flavor. It just felt kind of this weird hybrid world where I was expecting more of like the milkshake IPA. It just was somewhat too heavy in the puree, but still good, but a 3.75.
Yeah, I had 4 out of 5. It's hard for me to rate below 4 from Bad Habit, full disclosure. Like, it is hard because I do enjoy them, but I agree with you in that. But Harper, I've had this beer before, and I've had, I think, all of these beers before. So it's hard for me to sort of be like, oh, I agree with you. But I've had a 4 out of 5 on this for a long time when I've had it.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I wish it were a little more sour, though. I do agree in that. Like it doesn't quite know.
Yeah.
If it were more on the sour side, it would be like 4.5. If it were an IPA, it'd still be like a 4. Because that's just too much fruit for an IPA. So it just needed to be a little more sour.
Yeah.
So I that's why for me it's a 4, because it probably would have been higher if they had really come in at a sour.
Totally. Yep. Then we had the Red Baron Red IPA, and I haven't had quite a Red IPA in quite a while. It was a 4 for me. Again, solid, like good style. They produced it really well. I liked it.
Yeah, I have a 3.75, so it's actually below 4, and that's why I said it before. This doesn't make it bad. For me, I think it is a good red IPA. There was a little too smoky, almost. Like, there was like a smoky flavor to it to me. Didn't quite sit.
Gotcha.
I don't like red IPAs that much anyway. I think I don't even know.
Right?
I mean, like,
It's
I think I've had a
it's gone out of
Killian's
style.
Red Irish Ale before I've had a red IPA. Since, I mean, it's
Some
been
had
so
had
long.
one. Well, yeah.
Sure, I'm
but-
sure some it did, but I haven't had it. So, it's a 3.75. It's a fine beer.
And then we got to the Pièce de Résistance.
I know that one.
You do?
Yes.
From
Yes.
the Lego movie. But really ripped Imperial Blood Orange Milkshake IPA. Holy shnikes, this was good. 4.5 for me, 4.5. It was, because they have a rather ripped regular Blood Orange Milkshake IPA, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's also a 4.5 for me. Yeah.
But this was just a variation of a theme. And
Yeah, it's a little heavier, a little bit stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4.5 for me as well.
So
Both
good.
the really and the rather ripped. So rather ripped was actually voted by their fans as their best beer.
Yeah.
Along with their Dark Addiction, which we didn't have tonight, but it's also very good.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have 4.5 on the really ripped, which is the double version of the rather, and it's outstanding.
So good.
Yep, it's really good. I have 4.5 as well.
Fantastic. Good. I
Very
love it.
good beers. Bad Habit is awesome. If you find yourself anywhere in the vicinity, you need to head up there.
It was a good theme.
So we have our next segment. We have Hot Shots and Hot Shots Part 2.
I can't walk. They've tied my shoelaces together.
And where we offer up a hot take or some random thought that may or may not have been there 2 decades ago. Or, you know, if there's just an unspoken topic that we want to talk about, that's fine too. So, do you have a particular hot take you want to talk about, or?
I don't know if I'd say particular, but so for me, these type of films are challenging in some ways where I get the newbie is supposed to be kind of a proxy for the audience, where you're experiencing in many ways like kind of the insanity of this world, where it's like, holy crap, what is happening? But I often struggle with these stories where this new officer is so wide-eyed and naive as to be somewhat unbelievable. Tangent, the movie Sicario was loved, and it was awful because to me it was like, you're supposed to be a character that's like how could you be this good of an FBI agent and be this naive, be oblivious to the cartels? So it's like these characters in a movie like this have never read a book or seen a movie or show or listened to any kind of music, to the point where they live in a cave or something, where it's like, really, the streets of LA are that shocking to you? That being said, this one, however, is probably one of the best versions of this, where it handles that really well because it balances that wide-eyed perspective, largely because he's the mark. Like, he is being manipulated and chosen by this seasoned cop because he's preying upon that naivete. Like, all these other ones I can think of are a training, training day is a misnomer, where it's like, oh, I'm coming in, like, you're seeing, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. That naivete is actually what's being capitalized on by Alonzo in this. Because you think about, we talked about, like, where Alonzo, it's a side conversation where he says, you know, just make sure the bathtub is clean. And that is where the scene where he's setting up this newbie to be killed.
You're right.
And that to me stood out, where I love that this kind of played on that notion of, really, like, you're shocked by this world. You're like, you've been in the force for 19 months. You can be a narc officer, and you're like surprised by.
And
the
you
shit
grew
of
up
the
in
world.
LA, by
exactly.
the way.
Yeah. Oh my
or
god.
North Hollywood.
This is crazy. Like, how can you be that oblivious? But what works for this is once Hoyt starts to totally realize, like, Alonzo is off his rocker, as well as he is totally screwing him and going to kill him. That's what ups the tension for me, that I really appreciate in this kind of movie. So that was kind of a different take on this movie that I did not expect, because I mean, like, the first 20 minutes I'm like, oh my god, wake up, this is so, and then, oh, okay, different approach, I like it. So yeah, I was very impressed with that.
Yeah, cool. I have nothing to play off of that. So, I mean, but I will, for me, I'm not going to say I was wrong, because that's rare for film that I was wrong. But in our episode on Blow, we talked about how I was very surprised that was not up for original screenplay, and that it should have been up over Monsters Ball, especially.
Yep.
Because it was Memento, Gosford Park, Royal Tenenbaums, Monster Ball, and Amelie were the
true.
5 original.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to take that back. I am very surprised that this was not up over, especially over Blow, which wasn't up anyway, but Monsters Ball. So I found myself sitting there like, there's very few cliches in this movie.
Totally.
And they don't play off of that. And Ayer apparently wrote this in 95 and was sitting on it for a few years and couldn't get it made and made some tweaks and finally got a fan in either Fuqua or Washington. I can't remember which one. But very surprised. I will say, like, my sort of hot take is that I don't think David Ayer is necessarily a great writer. I think he's a good enough writer to make some good movies.
The concepts are really good.
Yeah, he does a really good job. This is absolutely something that was clearly a passion project for him.
Yeah.
It was something he held on to forever, and you can see it, and there's not a single time, and part of that is probably because the performances are so good, because they could have been really cliche otherwise.
Yeah.
I was really surprised, because the tension ramps up, the story's pretty good. That's I guess what I have on that.
That's a really good take. Yeah, I think that's true. Like, I was surprised at how invested I became in this movie.
I agree with that. Yep, of just saying, I actually care kind of about these characters, and I don't think I did the first time around.
No, totally. It's good.
All right, so our final segment then, our last segment of the episode is Quiz Show.
The exciting quiz program, 21.
And that is where we search for fun, quirky, even difficult trivia nuggets throughout our research for our next film and attempt to stump each other. As per usual, I probably only have one, and Tim has 3. 2 even. I had one kind of set up. But it was ruined on the coffee shop, because the coffee shop that's in this movie is in, like, feels like in everything, but it's for sure in 7. It was in Gone in 60 Seconds, Ghost World, 7, and others.
10 minutes in.
Yeah, 10
I
minutes
said,
in.
like, hey, it's from 7. Seems like, son of a bitch.
I have to find another one?
That's my trivia.
That's all right. So you have 2, so you can go first.
Ethan Hawke has been nominated for 2 supporting actor Academy Awards. One for this film, and then not again for another 13 years. Can you name the other film which began shooting the same year of his first nomination?
Yeah, Boyhood.
How crazy is that?
Yeah, they started shooting the same year.
Yeah, so he's nominated in 2002 it came out in 2001, but he's nominated for 2002.
Yeah.
And starts filming a movie that he's not nominated for 13 more years. Like, that's pretty dang cool. Yeah, Boyhood. Nice work.
So, the entire cast of this movie has been nominated for 15 Academy Awards.
Wow.
9 of which were for Denzel, and 4 of which were for Ethan Hawke. That leaves
writing.
2, right?
Okay.
Yeah, writing or producing.
2.
'Cause, Denzel had Fences.
The cast.
So these 2 from the cast who have been nominated for Oscars. Do you care to throw out a guess?
Scott Glenn from something.
Absolutely not.
0 for 1.
0 for 1.
I'm trying to think of the cast here. For acting? Or
yes,
just
actually acting. Yep.
What?
And there's only like 2 women in the film, so let's just sort of have to assume it's a man.
Wow. I had Cliff Curtis isn't.
Nope. Probably should have been for Whale Rider, but no.
Yeah. I am stumped. Completely stumped.
So both of them were in the 3 Wise Men scene, which is very, very short.
Okay. Tom Berenger.
Correct. That's 1.
But what would he have been nominated for?
It was a film from the 80s.
Oh, Platoon.
Correct.
A platoon to bring in.
To bring in. There you go. When you said it earlier, I was like, that better not have been.
Don't you spoil
this for me again. The other one is really obscure because I actually didn't know.
I can't think of the other people's actors.
Rip Torn is the other guy.
Yes.
And so he was actually nominated in 83 for supporting actor, but yeah.
Well done, sir.
There you go. So yeah.
Oh my gosh.
15 Oscar noms between all of them, 9 of which were Denzel. Let's just be fair here.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's fantastic, man. Wow. So Ethan Hawke, director Fuqua's first choice for Hoyt, was unavailable for a bit due to scheduling conflicts to film this movie. So another actor was offered the role of Jake Hoyt initially, but Hawke eventually became available, which was somewhat serendipitous because at the time, the other actor had to turn it down to develop his semi-autobiographical movie, which would come out the year later in 2002, for which he won an Oscar for Best Original Song. What Detroit rapper almost played Hoyt?
Yeah, Eminem.
Yeah.
And I knew that before he said the Detroit rapper. But yeah, Eminem was offered the role, and
Right?
that's what he wanted. Yeah.
It would have been a very different movie.
I agree. He would have been more brooding, for sure.
Sure. I just don't think
Eminem is outrageously good in 8 Mile.
He
Let's
is.
just admit. But not quite the same. I don't think he has the depth of experience of what Hawk can do.
Innocence of what Hawk can do.
Yeah, no, there's nothing innocent about Eminem.
Yeah, you was like, oh yeah, he's kind of, yeah. So I was like,
yeah, Eminem
what?
was...
I had no idea. It was fascinating to me. Yeah, so it all worked out.
Yes. Any other final thoughts on Training Day?
Dude, I'm so glad we watched this.
I am too.
We were kind of like, I mean, we should because of Denzel winning.
Right.
Sure. But I'm pleasantly surprised at how really, really good this movie is.
Yeah.
Well done. Yeah.
I am too, and I was hesitant to do it, so I'm very pleasantly surprised that it worked out. It's better than my 6 out of 10 would be more like 7.5. You know, for me, definitely some quibbles along the way.
Sure,
but the performances were outstanding. I think, yeah, I definitely think it was underrated in some ways from a acceptance standpoint at the time. Really authentic. I was very impressed at all of that.
Yes, I was engrossed the entire time.
Well, our next episode then, our next full episode, we have a happy hour coming up soon, which we'll be recording next. Heyo, releasing later. Our next happy hour will be on Zoolander, again, polar opposite from this film. But our next full episode, I believe, will be on AI, artificial intelligence. It'll be interesting to see that. I have very deep thoughts about that movie. I've written papers on that movie in college, so we'll see how it holds up after this long.
Send me a copy of those.
Yeah, if I could find them, I would. I'm sure they'd be
a thesis.
I'm sure they'd be a D at best. So our next episode will be AI. I guess, yeah. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Yeah. That brings us to the end of our episode. We want to say thanks for taking some time to listen and for clicking that like or subscribe button on your devices. Follow us on Twitter at years_beers or on Facebook. And head to 20years4beers.com for all things podcast related. This has been 20 Years 4 Beers. My name is Steve.
I'm Tim.
And thanks for listening.
Thanks.
King Kong ain't got shit on me!
Unsatisfactory climax.